Alright guys, this is Pursuit here, and I just wanted to make a quick YouTube video going over the TV Innovations TvP Reactor Cyclone build that I posted on Reddit earlier today. I had a request to make a YouTube video of the build order, so I thought I'd go ahead and do that. Um, so let's go ahead and hop into the game here. So we're just kind of gonna watch the game and talk about the timings, the build order, and what sort of things I'm looking for as I do this. So here I'm just setting up my camera location hotkeys. I usually set up my first 4 bases before I build my first depot. That's just a preference thing, it's not really part of the build. So we're going to open supply depot first at 14 supply, and then we're going to build a refinery at 15 supply. So this is just going to be a standard gas first Reaper fast expand. For those of you who've been playing Terran for a while now, you've probably been doing this opening in TvP and pretty much, or TvT in pretty much all your games, and TvP actually. Actually, this is pretty much the standard TvP opening from pre-patch, where you get the reactor on the barracks afterwards too. So barracks on 16, go up to 19 supply. Alright, we're gonna cut my camera since it's probably gonna be jumping around a lot. I tend to spam location hotkeys a lot, and it doesn't look too pretty when you're doing a YouTube video. So, okay, so then at 19 supply, you're gonna get the orbital and a Reaper. Send this SUV down to get a command center. So here's something I talked about in the guide a little bit, and it's something to just keep in mind, but the way Innovation does this build, he doesn't actually do an SCV scout early, and I feel like this is vulnerable to something like a 12 gate, where the Protoss player is really just trying to rush out a gateway unit to come and try to cancel the command center, or if they go for a proxy gateway to get out like a fast adept or stalker, again, to cancel the command center. And if you do end up having to cancel the command center and start rebuilding it on the high ground, it can put you really far behind. Like, I actually think if your opponent plays well from that situation, they should just win the game. So that's a little bit of a risk with the build. And you can always scout at 17 supply. And if you don't see the Nexus, if you see, a really early gateway, then you can always just build the command center on the high ground to be a little bit safer. So that's a variation you can do. This game I'm playing it just like Innovation does, without that scout. So I think the risk is pretty low. I don't think that many Protoss on ladder are going for a proxy 1 gate or 12 gate. So anyway, so back to the build. Throw down the factory, going to start a Reaper, or I mean a reactor on the barracks as soon as you have the gas for it. So then you're going to build the gas, and you're going to rally this SCV from the command center to the spot, and as soon as you have 100 minerals, you'll build the next SCV. So set the rally point back. I think I actually left the rally point down here too long. Yeah. So you want to make sure you fix the rally point from your command center. That was a mistake by me. Also a mistake, make sure you have 3 guys in gas. Okay, so with the Reaper, basically all you're doing is scouting, make sure they have a natural, and then they're probably going to have a stalker out, and on most of the maps in the map pool, there's only one entrance into the Protoss base. So that means you're not really going to be able to consistently get into the Protoss base and see what they're going for. So just keep poking, just keep prodding, make sure they're not taking like a super greedy third. Make sure they have units at the front to defend. You can always punish them if for some reason they decide to send all of their units across the map to go harass you. The Reaper can come in and get a couple probe kills. But what's really important is this Reactor Cyclone back at home. Actually, let's go ahead and back up, because I kind of, while I was talking about the Reaper, I kind of skipped that part of the build. So, alright, back at home. So you've started the factory, and you started the reactor. So you're going to swap the factory onto the barracks as soon as possible. My timings are actually a little bit slow this game. It's always harder to execute the build in a real game than it is in like just practicing the build against yourself. But you're going to start 2 cyclones, start the orbital command on the command center. You're going to have full saturation on this base, and then set both of the command center's rally points to your natural. And you're just going to make 4 cyclones total out of this factory. So that's kind of the key number you're looking for here is 4 cyclones. And after you've started the 4th cyclone, that's when you're going to throw down the 3rd command center, as soon as you have the minerals for it. So you'll see right here, I have technically the minerals to start the command center, but you want to make sure you queue up the 4th cyclone first before you start the command center. It's really important to get these 4 cyclones out as quickly as possible, because in case you're playing against some kind of Stargate play, like an Oracle back at home, or a Warp Prism, like an early Warp Prism, you need to have the 4 Oracles to kill the air units quickly enough. So that's really important that you have the ability to do that. So as you can see, cyclones do really crazy damage. Keeping them on top of a ramp like this is really good. So here's that 3rd command center I was talking about. So as soon as you finish, start this command center, with the next 100 minerals, you want to start a supply depot, and then you want to start the tech lab on the barracks, and then you want to throw down 2 gas. And it's really important you do it in that order, because the supply timings with this build are really tight. As you can see, I'm about to get supply blocked, so it's really important that you get that depot as tightly as possible. And then you have to start the tech lab next so that you can switch the factory over onto the tech lab. And then by the time you've switched the factory onto the tech lab, this depot should be done, giving you enough supply to start this siege tank. So then you're going to build 1 siege tank, throw down 2 factories. You should be mining the double gas here. Start the next siege tank. Okay. So I kind of messed up the build a little here. You want to start the 2nd siege tank first, and then throw down the double armory. I threw down the double armory first this game. It's not a huge deal. It's a difference of just a couple seconds. But the defense with this build is actually really tight. So here's a good little play from him. But here's the thing. So even, look, I wasn't watching my cyclones at all. But here's how good the cyclones are early against Protoss. I killed 2 stalkers for 1 cyclone. That's actually a really good trade for me. And that's with me just not paying attention, having my cyclones out here like an idiot. So that kind of just shows how good this build is against the stalkers. Obviously, the siege tanks are also really good. So here's the hard part of the build. In my opinion, the hardest part of the build. You want to wait until you have 4 siege tanks out to move out and take your 3rd. I moved out to take my 3rd a little bit early this game, because I saw the pressure he was putting on and how many stalkers he had, and that made me feel pretty safe to go ahead and take the 3rd a little bit earlier. Usually you want to wait until you have all 4 of these siege tanks out to actually start to take your 3rd. And as you're taking your 3rd is usually when you start 1-1-2. You really want to get 1-1 started at or before 6 minutes. The factory should be finishing around 5:45. But you might not have the gas to build them right at that moment. But yeah, you want to make sure the upgrades start at or around 6 minutes, at or before 6 minutes. So come down from here, you're just making depots. You're making siege tanks, cyclones, and Hellions, and you're getting those 1-1 upgrades. So as you take your 3rd, here the build order becomes a little bit more loose. You're going to throw down 2 more factories. You're going to start Blue Flame and Rapid Fire Launchers. And you want to be scanning the Protoss's base around now too. I think usually around 6:30 is when I start throwing down the scans. And I'll just be scanning here. Let's actually go back to my view for a little bit. Okay, doing some Hellion run-bys. So here's something I want to be really clear with the Hellion run-bys. you can do a lot of damage with Hellion run-bys with this build, but you have to make sure that you're not throwing away too many Hellions, because one of the best counters to this mech style is Chargelot Immortal Archon. And what makes Chargelot Immortal Archon so powerful against this style is mainly the fact that the Chargelots can tank the siege tank shots and get on top of them so that the siege tanks are splashing themselves and killing each other. And the only unit that you really have that can defend against that is the Hellions. So it's really important to keep your Hellion count really large and healthy against against Chargelot styles. So starting 2-2, I'm a little bit late on my rapid fire launchers, but I mean, if we just look at my vision, we can see I've been scanning. I've been able to see, you know, he's going gateways. Oh, sorry, let's go back to my view. So I've been able to see he's been going gateways. I've been, this Hellion run by, got to see his army composition. I got to see more gateways coming down here. So I'm pretty sure he's playing a ground-based style at this point. So that's why I decided to delay the rapid-fire launchers. I figured it wasn't going to be as critical in this game because I've been able to see that he isn't making air units yet. Yeah. So here I'm just making units, and you'll see now that my tank count has started to get pretty large. Usually around 8 tanks is sort of that key number. Around 8 tanks is what you want. And after that, you want to transition into making almost entirely Cyclone Hellion. Cyclone Hellion is going to be your main composition for the big engagements in this game.
Nothing left in that mineral cluster.
So yeah, as you can see, macroing up.
Mineral field depleted.
My macro was a little poor this game. You can be hitting about 180 supply by 9:30, which is when you want to start pushing out typically. So let's see, I come in here with some Hellions, just doing some harass. I actually feel like this was a mistake this game. I don't think I should have committed so much with these Hellions. As you can see, I end up losing a bunch of these Hellions.
Upgrade complete.
Basically for no reason. Like, I did a little bit of damage, but I really needed those Hellions for the main engagement. Now, this game, I'm playing somebody who's a little bit lower level than me, so I just have a much bigger army. This engagement is going to go in my favor, even if I just moved into it. But typically, you can see what I'm looking for with this engagement is I've got my core of tanks behind my army, and I'm really scanning ahead and pushing forward with my Cyclone Hellion force. And what I want to do is siege up these tanks really far away from my opponent's army. Like, if he turns around and starts attacking right now, I want to immediately siege up my tanks, and then I want to kite back with the Hellions and Cyclones. Now, like I said, I could just move into his army and win because it's so much bigger and we're on even upgrades. But yeah, so for the main engagement, you can see this goes really heavily in my favor just because I have a much bigger army. But here's the other thing you have to remember, right? Like, so after a big engagement like that, you're typically going to have siege tank. Like, if you just move versus move, you're going to lose all of your Hellions because your Hellions are up at the front of the engagement, right? So even if you win the fight, you're going to win the fight with just siege tanks left, and then he's going to do a big Zealot warp in, and then come in and kill all of your siege tanks. So what you want to do is you actually have to make sure you keep Hellions alive, and you typically want to be reinforcing the push with Hellions as well, because Hellions are what is going to allow you to clean up the Zealot warp in without losing all of your siege tanks. So you have to make sure you keep Hellions alive. Like, even I would rather lose like 4 of my siege tanks, but keep, you know, a group of 8 Hellions alive, than I would to lose, you know, no siege tanks but lose all of my Hellions. Because then when the Zealot warp in comes in, he's just going to kill all of my siege tanks afterwards. Whereas if I have, you know, 4 siege tanks and a group of Hellions alive, I'll actually be able to deal with the Zealot warp in. So that's some sort of key things to look out for with this build. Other than that, you're really looking for that 10-minute 2-2 big push, and you want to be taking your 4th behind it. Didn't really get into that too much, unfortunately, but yeah. So other considerations with this build, This 10-minute 2-2 push is really, really strong. You're going to kill a lot of Protoss players with this outright. If the game continues on from here, though, some common transitions I go for. Obviously, you want to start 3-3 upgrades. I was really late starting 3-3 this game. And then I like to add on ghosts versus ground-based armies, like what I'm playing against here. If you're playing against a air-based army, like carriers or whatever, you have to make sure you keep his air army low in numbers. If he gets to maxed out carriers, the same as playing bio, honestly, you're never going to be able to fight that army head-on with Mech. Thors do really well when you can actually reach the carriers, but carriers have longer range, not like initially, so carriers have to come into range of the Thors to attack them, but then they can pull back outside of Thor range and still be attacking, so they can kind of like kite your Thors to death. And then Cyclones deal with carriers really well in small numbers with the rapid-fire launchers upgrade. But once the carrier count starts to get too big, Cyclones really can't deal with them anymore. So the key is to keep the carrier count low, and if for some reason it does get high, you want to start playing a very counterattack heavy style. Keep the Protoss on a low economy. Cyclones are actually pretty great for this. 3-3 Cyclones kill a Nexus insanely quickly. So you can just send like even just 4 Cyclones around, come in, snipe a Nexus, pull back. It's really strong once you have 3-3. So yeah, I guess that's really about it. Thanks everyone for watching, and hopefully I'll be bringing you some more guides soon, now that I have some free time now that finals are over. So yeah, thanks for watching.